A paraplegic radio host discovers the existence of a unique subculture in New York City. However, the deeper he goes into the investigation, the more the journey becomes self-realization. In New York City, public radio talk show host Isaac tells his listeners about the fateful morning 18 years ago when his parents perished in a car crash. He says his mother died on impact while his father died of hemorrhaging from a torn pulmonary vein and massive internal injuries. During the same incident, Isaac lost the use of both legs and has been in a wheelchair ever since. As he continues his show, he remembers a story he did a while back about a kid who thought something his father had left him was magically making him run faster. He remembers seeing the patch and thinking that it didn't look magical at all. However, he says he made two discoveries. The first of which is that after a lifetime of people staring at him for being in a wheelchair, he noticed that some of them were out of jealousy. Then, the man shares that his second discovery was a pair of magic shoes. Weeks ago, in the public New York radio office, the production assistant, Janice, tells Isaac that she got him a date, stating that it's time he moved on from his ex-girlfriend Rain. When the woman hands over Charlene's number, the man asks if the potential date knows he's paraplegic, so she assures him that he doesn't need to worry because he's good-looking. Suddenly, Edie calls Isaac to her office where she tells him about a man who walked into a hospital and bribed a doctor to chop off his perfectly healthy leg. She's fascinated with the story and reveals that the caller specifically requested to meet the radio host. Hugh, who overhears the conversation, tells Edie that this story sounds like something he should handle, adding that he knows someone who works at the hospital. So Isaac tells the man that he should go ahead and call his contact and they'll both see who gets the story first. Later, the talk show host tries to hail a cab outside a building, but they all ignore him. Eventually, he speaks to Candy, a nurse, who recounts that the man told a first-year surgical resident to cut off his leg in exchange for $250,000. She says the staff turned him down and the man ran off. Isaac asks if these types of incidents happen often. So Candy shares that the man was creepy and casually said he wanted a transtibial amputation below his left knee. The woman adds that she also noticed how the man seemed like he knew the leg wasn't a part of his body and he wanted it gone. Before he leaves, Isaac tells the nurse to call him if any doctor accepts the man's offer. Later, the talk show host spots a pair of shoes in a storefront window. That evening, the man prepares for his blind date. Outside the apartment building, he has trouble hailing a cab, so Brewster, the doorman, asks if he needs help and he says no. At the restaurant, Charlene overhears her name when Isaac mentions it to the waiter, but when she sees her date in a wheelchair, she immediately leaves. The man realizes who she is, and she gives him a look that implies that she didn't know he was a paraplegic and that she wouldn't have gone on the date had she known. Isaac, who's experienced this many times before, tells the waiter to clear the other set of cutlery from the table because he'll be dining alone. The next day, he learns that Hugh got a different story from his contact at the hospital. Apparently, the procedure took place and the amputated leg was discovered in a freezer by an orderly and sent to the pathology department. Then, Hugh smugly tells Isaac that his contact lied to him and wonders if it may be because people don't take him seriously as an interviewer. After the man leaves, Janice tells the talk show host that she's never speaking to Charlene again, implying that she knows what happened last night. Seconds later, he opens an email from the anonymous caller who tipped Edie on the amputation story, telling him to meet her at a certain address at 7 p.m. That evening, he enters a basement room where he sees a group of wheelchair-bound people huddled in a circle. However, the man sees them moving their feet, and he wonders if they're all able-bodied. When they notice Isaac, they ask how he found out about the group, and he says he received an anonymous email, possibly from a member, so the group leader asks the man to talk about his relationship with his chair. Isaac shares that he has a paraplegic injury, prompting the group leader to clarify that they're wannabes who want to be like him. While others don't feel comfortable using their chairs around him, a woman wants to know how the man feels about people like them. Eager to earn their trust, the talk show host says he's willing to answer any questions they might have. The group leader asks him what it's like to not feel, and he says his last running dream was over a decade ago and admits that although he's not hopeful, he'd like to be able to walk again. He adds that he works out every day on the off chance that he does regain the ability. The woman looks at him admiringly and calls him perfect. perfect. Eventually, he reveals that he's a public radio talk show host and he'd like to tell their stories. However, the members quickly leave the room after his revelation. He tries to convince the group leader by stating that his show is a great platform for their cause, but the man walks away. That night, Isaac dreams of his last moments with his parents as they drive down the road with tulip fields around them. The next day, he receives a call from the anonymous woman who tells him that she's been studying the group for a while because she wants to know why they want to be paralyzed. Intrigued, the man asks if they can meet as soon as possible. Later, Fiona picks him up in a cab and they head to a Chinese restaurant. Isaac records the interview and the woman says she's a museum conservator. She mentions someone named Ginger Jake, a person the wannabe paraplegics go to become paralyzed. When he asks her for details about the procedure, Fiona says she'd rather learn more about him and wants to know how he became paralyzed. So the talk show host tells her about how he lost his parents in the accident. He says the other driver was underage, so the records were sealed, but he thinks it was a girl because he remembers seeing cheerleader pom-poms on the ground. Later at the park, the man asks the woman why she thinks her friend, the person who bribed the doctor, wants his leg cut off. Fiona says she's trying to understand why her friend wants to be paraplegic, but she thinks she'll only be able to do that by getting to know Isaac, an actual paraplegic. Then, they bond over both having a coworker who hates them, and she brings up the possibility of the talk show host meeting her friend. That afternoon, they head to the woman's apartment where she reveals that she wears leg braces and uses a cane. Isaac asks what makes her different from the wannabes who want to be paralyzed. So Fiona says she's a unique case because she believes she's paralyzed but that she's trapped in a walking person's body. Then, the woman removes the braces and kisses the talk show host. However, he politely turns her down and explains that he can't make love to her because he just got out of a relationship. When Fiona learns that the ex-girlfriend is paraplegic, she takes a step back. Isaac shares that Rain turned down his proposal for marriage because she believed one person in a relationship should be able to walk. Eventually, the embarrassed woman hopes Isaac doesn't think she only wants to sleep with him because he's in a wheelchair. So the man assures her that he doesn't think that and that he just wants to understand people like her. Fiona says she's never shown anybody this side of her and he says she can always talk to him. However, the woman says she needs to use her wheelchair now and she can't use it in front of him. Isaac says it's alright if she does and that she can trust him. So Fiona says she's gonna use her chair in public for the first time tomorrow and they can talk then. Later, the talk show host researches the different subsects of people like Fiona. The wannabe amputees are categorized as having body integrity identity disorder, but paralysis wannabes have no known pathology. The next day, he plays basketball with his friend, Father Dave, a fellow paraplegic he met at a Jesuit seminary. The priest asks about Rain, so the man tells him that they broke up. Later, the wheelchair-bound Fiona meets Isaac at a restaurant and she wonders if people are staring. She happily points out that a woman staring at her and says it feels incredible. The conservator confides that she's been dreaming of this moment for a long time and asks Isaac to tell her if she's doing anything that she shouldn't be doing as someone in a wheelchair. Suddenly, Rain appears and she says she's there with her date. To ease the tension, Fiona tries to make small talk until the ex-girlfriend finally bids goodbye. Moments later, Isaac exits the restaurant hoping to speak to Rain, but he's too late. So the talk show host spends the rest of the afternoon wandering through the city. Then, he finally buys the shoes he saw a few days ago. While he's taking them out of the box, he hears a knock on the door. Fiona hands the man his recorder back because he left it at the restaurant and he apologizes for ditching her. However, the woman says it's okay because she had the most incredible day. She says that after she stopped worrying about what others think, she realized that she could do anything. Isaac says he was just about to talk to Brewster because he didn't want to be alone, so the woman pushes him back into the apartment with her chair. Then Fiona touches his face, tips his chair so he falls on the bed, and they make love. The next day, the talk show host finds the other woman's note stating that she'll call him later. Later, he puts on his new pair of shoes and feels a slight pricking sensation in his foot. So he stands up, but when he takes one step, he falls to the floor. Isaac removes the shoes and the sensation immediately disappears. For the next few minutes, the man tries to walk while wearing the shoes. Then, he leaves the apartment and takes labored steps while holding himself up against walls and handrails. Outside the building, his sudden ability to walk surprises the shocked doorman. Later in the office, the co-workers watch in awe as he walks in using crutches. That afternoon, he shows Father Dave and the priest returns a somber look. Then, the talk show host heads to the museum to visit Fiona, who greets him with a kiss. The woman says she's decided to come out about her wheelchair, starting with her mother hoping to finally use it in her regular life. She asks Isaac to come with her when she does it and he says yes. Moments later, the man reveals that he can walk again, but she's weirded out by this development. The conservator takes a seat on his chair and realizes she's never used one in her workplace before, much to her delight. That evening, he keeps the shoes on while they make love, and Fiona keeps repeating that she can't move as though she's paralyzed. The next day, they drive to Long Island where the man meets the conservator's mother merrily. Later, he says he should have brought some alcoholic beverages to enjoy, but the older woman shares she's been sober for a while, implying a history of alcoholism. The talk show host notices how the mother always seems to undermine her daughter's small achievements and goals at work. Suddenly, the annoyed conservator finally stands up for herself and says she's free to do whatever she wants with her life. Eventually, the couple drives back to the city and the woman says she's a joke and no better than the people in the wannabe group. She suggests Isaac scrap her story and write one about himself instead. He says he doesn't want to, so she scoffs when thinking about how her story is going to be called Why Fiona Wants to Be Paralyzed. The talk show host finds it odd that she said wants to be paralyzed when she told him that she believed she already was, so the conservator asks him if she looks paralyzed, implying that this was always a delusion she wanted to be true. In the apartment, Fiona says they both know how the relationship's gonna end because he'll always feel sorry for her. The man insists he doesn't, so the woman points out that she'll never be normal. Isaac tells her that she has the right to be whatever she wants to be, but she says she's tired of pretending. The talk show host says he knows exactly how she feels because he feels like he's pretending whenever he's walking, so he takes off his shoes and explains that he loses his ability once they're off his feet. Intrigued, Fiona wonders what'll happen to her if she puts them on. After she slips them on, nothing happens, and she teases if he made it all up. He calmly asks her to take them off, so the conservator places them back on his feet. She theorizes that maybe they're pinching a nerve in his feet, thus giving him the sensation. Relieved that he was finally able to tell someone his secret, Isaac accepts the woman's comforting hug. Later, the talk show host asks Fiona to bring him his shoes to the bathroom. However, she ignores his request and stands by the door holding them. Suddenly, she tearfully admits that she thought her condition would go away after she met him, but it didn't. Then, she says that after she saw how happy he was that he was no longer paralyzed, it made her want to be happy that she could walk, but the feeling never lasted. Isaac asks for his shoes again, but Fiona says she'll only do so if he helps her become a T12 paraplegic. The man thinks she's joking. However, she's serious about wanting to be paralyzed by him specifically. The talk show host tries to grab his shoes, but the woman quickly leaves the apartment with them. Later, he talks to the group leader who says he can't answer his question of why a person who isn't paralyzed would want to be. The man shares that he didn't choose to be this way and that he's lost so many people in his life after he revealed himself to them. So Isaac says he just wants to know how to find Ginger Jake because he wants to help a friend. The next day, the talk show host gives Fiona a bottle of Ginger Jake or triorthocressyl phosphate, a substance used to soften plastic. He says it'll paralyze her arms and legs if that's what she wants. However, the woman tosses back the bottle because she still wants him to paralyze her. Then, she tells him to be at her apartment tonight or she'll cut up his shoes into tiny pieces. Exasperated, Isaac says that no matter what happened to her in the past, she doesn't deserve to be paralyzed. Later, he listens to a recording and remembers a girl who tried waking him up after the accident. Then, Isaac heads to the office and asks Hugh for help finding out if Fiona was the girl in the other car. However, the co-worker says the easiest way to find out is to ask the woman. Later that day, the talk show host enters the conservator's apartment, and he sees a single tulip in a vase on the table. Next to it is a diagram of the human nervous system. Then, Isaac asks if she wants him to hurt her because she thinks she hurt him. Desperate for answers, the furious man throws the items off the table. Moments later, Fiona recounts her mother telling her that the boy in the other car survived but he'd be stuck in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. However, she says she was relieved because she thought he died when she saw him lying on the road. The talk show host turns to leave, but the woman says he has hysterical paralysis, implying that his paraplegia is psychologically manifested. Then, he remembers how he pulled the lock on the car door seconds before Fiona's car plowed into theirs. Suddenly, Isaac tries to stand up, but he falls to the floor. Then, he realizes that she might be right that he internalized pulling the lock as the cause of the accident, and his paralysis was the manifestation of his guilt. The woman says that she has a fantasy that someday after they haven't seen each other in some time, she'll hear him say that he finally forgives her, even if he says it over the radio. Eventually, Fiona finally gives him back his shoes, but he realizes that he can move his legs even without wearing them. As he tells the story on his show, the host says that he never saw the woman again because she moved out of the apartment immediately. Isaac states that he spoke to Marilee, but she doesn't know where her daughter is either. However, he learned that the morning of the crash, Fiona saw her drunk mother on the couch and decided to run away, explaining why she was driving the vehicle. 2 months after the last time he saw the woman, the man visits the places where they spent time together.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.